And the recording is going, and we are in session 2. And once again, this is a session 2 on higher ed, HBCUs and COVID-19, challenges, research, reactions, changes, critical perspective. And it's going from right now to 2:10, and the moderator, I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Stephanie Gorski.
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Wiley College's second annual school-wide research symposium. And once again, this is our second session. The first section was excellent. I learned a whole bunch about the oral history project, and I'm very excited about that. Now we're going to be talking about a subject that affects pretty much everybody, higher education, HBCUs, and COVID-19. So I hope you'll stay tuned later today. We have a Media Day career panel full of opportunities for those for graduates, particularly in communications. And then we have a student research competition that I'm very proud of what our students have done there, and then a scholarship opportunity discussion. So I hope that y'all will be popping in throughout the day to see that. I'd like to start by just going around and letting our panelists introduce themselves and tell the guests where they fit into higher education for anybody that does not know them already. We have several professors, some health professionals, some administration, and we have Dr. Hedrick's student scheduled as well, and I don't see him. So where's your guy, Dr. Hedrick? I see some of my students here. I don't want to put them on the spot.
Well, I sent a link out to my students, and but I did mention they take 5 minutes after, so it'll be 15 after before many of them pop in.
Okay. Well, I mentioned to my students, I see some of my students here, so I mentioned to y'all that I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I highly encourage you to chime in because there are some questions for you. So you might have to carry the load for our mystery person right now. So let's go ahead and let the panelists introduce themselves. I'm just going to go around the way I'm seeing y'all in Zoom, which puts Dr. Robinson first. Tell us about yourself. Glad to have you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dominique Aisha Robinson. I have the wonderful privilege of serving as the Dean of Chapel here at Wiley College, and I'm elated to share on this panel this morning.
Dr. Hicks.
No, okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Carol Hicks. I'm chair of interdisciplinary and general studies at Wiley College and teach education mainly as an associate professor at Wiley.
All right, nurse.
My name is Pam Bradley, and I am the Director of Health Services here at Wiley.
Dr. Lundy?
Good morning. I'm Dr. Ray Lundy, and I serve as the Associate Vice President for Student Health, Counseling, and Wellness here at Wiley College.
Dr. Andrews?
Good morning. I'm Dr. Tracy Andrews. I'm Director of the Lee P. Brown Criminal Justice Institute here at Wiley College.
Dr. Muhammad?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Devisi Muhammad. I'm an associate professor of history here at Wiley, and I am an assistant dean. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Would any of the students like to chime in?
Ms. Lydia Brown. I am just so happy and elated to be here. I am a junior in the mass communications program. And this is just, like I said, something I've been looking forward to ever since Dr. Hedrick has been talking about it. So thank you all so much for this. This is very exciting. And I look forward to meeting you all in person one day in the near future.
And my student Ty says, glad to be here. Thank you, Ty. Glad to have you. Any of the other students want to chime in, introduce themselves? How about Dr. Cox?
Hello. I have to apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera, so I don't have my camera on, but I am so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I am Dr. Stephanie Cox. I am the Interim Assistant Vice President of Academic Affairs and Extended Education. And I'm in about, this is my first week here. So if I have not met you here at Wiley, I look forward to meeting you. And so far, this has been a great event. Thank you.
So the first question I have is just to the professors in the group, because I know we moved online very fast, and there was a lot of learning that we as professors had to do very fast. So what challenges did you have to overcome, and what would you do differently? I'm going to turn to Dr. Andrus first.
Okay, thank you very much. There are a lot of challenges that I've had to overcome, and main one being spending 3 years in the Louisiana Department of Corrections and in the Texas Department of Correction, being sentenced to 57 years in prison for check kiting in the early 1980s. I just thank God, for giving me the opportunity to work at Wiley College. I graduated first out of my program at Prairie View A&M University in 1995, I think it was. No, I'm sorry, 2005, with a PhD in juvenile justice. I was the first African-American in the United States to earn that degree. So I definitely encourage students and tell them that it is possible. With God, all things are possible. You have an opportunity to do some great things. And I just thank Wiley College for allowing me to work there for now 15 years as director of the Lee P. Brown Criminal Justice Institute. Thank you.
Dr. Muhammad, thank you. Dr. Muhammad, what do you think?
Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone. And the question here is challenges and what else is there? Just basic challenges with COVID-19. I think the biggest challenge is to conduct online sessions with students and figuring out ways to get them to participate, because all students are not used to taking courses online. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And I think that teaching in COVID-19, let's say, I want to say one thing. I think COVID-19 saved higher education. That's number one. And the second thing is that I think that it's more than just teaching content. I think one of the things that I have to do is talk about and encourage students to develop what we call soft skills. And soft skills here, we're talking about being on time, we're talking about professionalism, we're talking about organization, all these prerequisite skills, or what we would call job skills, that students need in order to use their degrees. I'm challenged with infusing such into my classes online. I usually do it in person, of course, but COVID-19, it's a different level of challenge. So I think that that's one of the challenges. So I'm doing more than usual. And I can see the relevance more so of these soft skills. And it's been a challenge to get students to practice these soft skills. And I'm trying my best to emphasize that, but it's really showing. And one of the conclusions, and I already knew it anyway, but one of the conclusions at which I have arrived is that if students do not develop their soft skills, being on time, professionalism, organization, they won't be able to use their degrees. So the soft skills are a prerequisite to success in terms of just using the degree. That's one thing. And it's really didn't, and such is really demonstrated by COVID-19. Another thing that we see is that online teaching and learning is not for all students. That's for one thing. Because of the different learning styles, students who are self-motivated, or what we call independent learners, and self-starters, they are doing well. But for those who need the social interaction, those who need the face-to-face, many of them are sincerely challenged. And I've even had some students tell me that they're not going, last semester they said this, they're not going to enroll until they have some type of face-to-face interaction, classroom interaction, because of the sincere and serious challenges. Also, it's a matter of, I'm sorry, taking up a lot of time, but this is my last point there. Also, it's a technological curve. So if a person is not adept, whether it's student or faculty, with regard to online teaching and knowing Canvas, that can be a challenge as well. So students are forced to learn the technology fast, become adept with it in order to be successful. I've had students who submit late assignments simply because they didn't know how to upload the assignments on Canvas. They sent the assignments, but they sent them to the wrong way. I never reached them until the last day. And I looked at the dates they sent them, and they were on time. So I had to give the student credit, but the student did not know how to upload the assignment. So it's challenges like that students are faced with. And many faculty had never taught online courses. So that was a challenge. So one of the things that is happening is this technological online adeptness that's taking place. And the last point, again, that I'll make is that one of the things that's happened with COVID-19 and online teaching is that in higher education, administrators and faculty have developed a newfound respect for online teaching, online degrees, online resources. So that has changed the concept. I know that when I was teaching at another institution, the provost at that school told me, I was chairing a search committee, and he told me not to interview people with online degrees, graduate degrees. And I was taken aback. This is about 10 years ago. But in this type of environment, that's off the table because of the experiences that faculty and administrators are having with online teaching, online resources, and the adeptness and what it's proving, the conclusions about it, just by virtue of the firsthand account and experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hicks.
Okay. When we went into the fall, or in the, what was it, fall semester, and yeah, when we hit COVID last year, I knew that students were not going to show up online if they were told they didn't have to. But when spring came and we had set times for classes, I really had an expectation that more students would be showing up for their class time, and that didn't happen. And, you know, people would say, oh, I've got a job and I can't be there. So unfortunately, I think I went more lecture mode than I needed to, because of it's often me and the camera in a class period. And I had this unrealistic expectation because, you know, I'm talking to people who are at different universities, and they've got kids dropping into their Zoom meetings that don't belong to their classes. And I'm like, I want that too. I want little droppers in, and I didn't get that. I'm basically, it's me and the camera a lot of days. So that's been a challenge. I mean, I can make myself entertaining, I know, but you know, it's still even operating in Canvas, and I'm supposedly one of the better people working in Canvas, I still have my technical challenges. And now that I've started using Blue Button versus Zoom, I lost my Zoom skills. And so these are the kind of things that, you know, kids are having to face too, because they may have been in Zoom last semester, now they're in Blue Button, and then we ask them to go to Zoom. And, you know, if you don't use the skill often, you lose it. And I know I had already been teaching online. So for me, I had an easier time on the transition because one of my, or all of my classes were built like I would have taught online anyway. So I had an advantage, and then I was able to help other faculty who were not so used to teaching online. And that, again, seeing how different everybody's computer adeptness is, like Dr. Muhammad was talking about, was challenging because, you know, some people only used it to record their grades, and other faculty, you know, were using it like me, and everything that I ever did was always online. But trying to get the students there, one of the other problems dealing with COVID is the kids were actually catching COVID. You know, they'd be out in their workplaces, or, you know, a family member would expose them, and all of a sudden they're gone for a month because they're so sick. And that has become something that, you know, you may not even know why this kid has disappeared for a month until the kid is healthy enough to get back online and say, you know, I'm just now coming off COVID and I'm still rather weak and I need help. And so that's been a big problem. You know, yesterday I talked to someone and hadn't even known that they'd been sick with COVID. I mean, it's just crazy how, you know, you could be 1 minute talking to you and then you drop out for a week and I don't think anything of it. I just think your life is busy and you become sick and no one has been informed. And I think that's been a weakness in the system, is that there needs to be a way that we can find out faster so we can offer support faster. Because students have, you know, a lot of them are now helping pay the bills in their families. And so imagine if they're out sick for a month, those families were probably dependent on net income. And we might have been able to help them with our COVID emergency assistance if we had known how, you know, sick they were. But again, like I said, we don't find out until, you know, thank God, almost everybody has recovered. But it's challenges like that that really, you know, sink home. And I think it's helped people become a lot kinder hearted. So one thing COVID, I think, has done is made people more aware of the challenges. You know, before it's like, you know, you live in the dorm, you should be able to get up and get out to class, and there should be, you know, no excuse. But I think now that people are really becoming more kinder hearted as they're listening to kids, kind of like with the Oral History Project, you know, seeing the challenges that these students are facing and, you know, how much stress there is in families. Because, you know, I would say that in, you know, our family life, pretty stress-free, you would think. But even, you know, there's things under the surface you don't see. Where I think, oh, I have a great life. And, you know, my kid who goes to Wiley is struggling. And, you know, it's just each person's going to be different in how they react to, you know, the challenges. And so, again, I think it was a blessing in some ways because it made a lot of people stop and have to take serious look at their lives. You know, and I'm talking from the students' point of view as well. And so, again, I just think that, you know, there have been challenges, but I think that people have also gained a lot of skills. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. I see that my good friend Dr. Datis has joined us. So Dr. Datis, we were just talking about the challenges of moving online. What do you want to add? Or tell us who you are first, actually, and then tell us about your challenges. You're muted.
Sorry. My name is Roland Datis. I used to be at Wiley. I'm a sociology professor at Texas College. And when Dr. Edricks and Dr. Goski asked me to be part of this great event, so I had putting some questions apart, and most of them have been answered. But I'm going back to the historical context since I'm a sociologist, you know that. In March 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic, which was initially known as a contagious cold. And now we all became aware that the internal contagious cold is worldwide and more people will be affected. So it becomes a question for everybody, not only professors, but students. Not only students, but the common people. Not the common people, the parents. All of us become aware of that. So what's going on? Why is COVID a concern for all schools, colleges, and universities? Schools are not equipped to shift from in-person learning for students to online. Most teachers believe because of all the unknowns of the virus, there will be a problem. Going to the adventure of virtual will be safer for both teachers and students. Not all members of the population have equal access to healthcare. Not all students have the same economic standard for meeting stay-at-home requirements. The questions to ask is how is COVID-19 affects the HBCU? Because I'm going fast on that. Based on reading research type, different type of research, and even the Center for Disease Control reveals that studies on pandemic high-risk spatial disparities are linked to chronic diseases, mainly in minority population. So remember that, mainly in minority population. So when we look at several deaths, let me go and tell you the numbers. And that yesterday, January 21, Black or African American, 74%. American Indian or Alaska Native, 40%. Hispanic or Latino, 40%. Asian, 31%. White, 30%. Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders, 20%. Other, 20%. As we all have learned from the news, those are the results of health inequalities and our group political maintenance. So to answer to this question, those research and all those people that are talking about the inequality in the system are showing that the issues that HBCU are going to are not comparable to the white schools. What's going to happen to our students? Well, not only the reading are telling us that, but I just heard Dr. X and Dr. Mohammed talks about the situation that students were going to without pointing out that students, most of the students didn't have a laptop. And most of them didn't know how to use a laptop. And we all know it's because of the situation they came from. So, which means what? Students are living in foster homes with the intention of not coming back. So students came to school so they can escape family situation. And because of that, the dorms become home. So what is the reality there? If we are looking at students' results, we also need to look at those things. So they left home, they are in school, COVID knocks at the door, and now they have no place to go. So you're gonna face uncertainties that you probably were not, none of us thinks of those things prior to COVID-19. My students, when I ask them why you're not doing your work, because everybody knows that I have good relationship with my students. I developed that. So I call them, they send me email, we talk. And when I ask them why you don't come to class and why can you do your work? Dr. Datis, I have to work. And I said, why are you giving works priority to school? It's because I don't have other place to go. And guess what's going on? The job is taking advantage of them too, because they are living in a place they are paying $500 a month. They're not making $500 a week, not $500 every 2 weeks. So they have to pay the schools, and the hours of school and hours of work are not working together. So this is a real situation. I think COVID-19, as Dr. X said, opened our eyes in many things. But mostly I think that COVID-19 is teaching us to be more, how do I say that, more,
Passionate.
not considerable, what is it? Passionate,
Passionate.
yeah. Yes, more passionate. Because we know that we don't need the students. At the same time, we also know that the HBCUs could not see themselves like the PWI. HBCUs, we have a mission. And COVID-19 showed it very clear to us. The 74% of people died, Blacks. And who are those students? They are from those families? Yes. So we are looking at, when I go back to the number, I was saying, is it true what I'm reading? So what we are seeing, that content of, they are forced to work long hours to meet the needs that made life easier for them, the hours of work, school work, and fear of going back home, and fear of parents that are going to die. Difficult for good class management. All those things are difficult for good class management and good results. Thank you.
Thank you, and good to hear from, always good to see you. I know we have two guests from Health Counseling and Wellness today, and they've done so much as far as getting out health information, running random COVID tests and health screening. I can certainly say that I am vaccinated because of the information that they have sent out specifically. So what did y'all from Health Counseling and Wellness, what did you learn about this, and is there anything that you're going to take with you when we go back to in-person instruction? Nurse Bradley?
Well, I learned that we must work together to ensure that people have the resources that they need to maintain and manage their health, physical and mental health. There's still a lot of health disparities that have put, racial and ethnic minority groups at a disadvantage, at a greater risk of getting sick and dying from COVID. So we need to just continue to implement the things that the CDC requires us, that they recommended that we do to prevent the spread through our community and on campus as well. So that's what I'm taking away from it.
I totally agree with Nurse Bradley in terms of working together. I also learned that with things changing so quickly, particularly in the beginning with COVID, that we have to always be aware of the most up-to-date information, and that sometimes the decisions we make were going to be hard. In the very beginning, the decision to not be here was made solely on the safety of our campus and our capacity to keep folks safe, and relative to what we talked about with health disparities. Because the health disparity in our communities were so high, it was a better decision for us to be home. But we knew that we weren't equipped, or that it would be much of an adjustment for us academically. So that was a hard decision to make, but it was a decision we need to make in the best interest and the safety of everybody. So one of the things I learned personally is that sometimes doing the right thing is so uncomfortable, and folks won't be happy. And I'm in the business of helping folks feel better emotionally, but that was really hard to do because people wanted to be on Wiley's campus, but that would not have been what would have been safe for our students. I think knowing that, and then serving in my role, that was my role as administrator. My role as a psychologist, though, on the day-to-day transitioning to teletherapy, I was hearing everything you've already said about working, having to work, being at home. Home wasn't safe for some folks, right? I'm saying it was safer in the global decision as an administrator, as a psychologist. One-on-one, home actually wasn't safe for some people. For many people, it was triggering. Rates of assault, rates of suicide, substance use. Our students were struggling. And at the exact same time, I was a person too, right? And so I'm experiencing my own COVID stuff. And so, like I said, knowing as an administrator that this was super challenging because this was going to be the best decision and the guidance we needed to give President Felton and the cabinet. And we had to do it really quickly. These decisions had to be made on a dime. But then knowing then that our students were struggling, there was a lot of pain. And so I learned that sometimes that pain, even when it was the right decision, I needed to kind of still move forward and figure out how I could best provide teletherapy, because that was new for me. I am not, I think Dr. Muhammad mentioned this earlier. There's a stigma, a stereotype that if you're doing it online, it's not going to be, the quality is not going to be as good. What I actually found though, is my students showed up in terms of no-show rates. My no-show rates went down. My students were keeping, I wish that had translated into class attendance though. I know that we said that class attendance was not, but they were showing up for these teletherapy appointments, and we were talking about their challenges though in being present in class. And sometimes it was a matter of feeling emotionally fatigued, right? Like to show up with me, it's like the idea is that I was going to pour into you. I could help you with the emotional fatigue. Showing up for Zoom, they were stressed, financially overwhelmed, the triggers at home that I talked about. And so being present in class was hard, but we talked about that. We processed that. And I learned as a clinician how to be a better how to give therapy via virtual. And so that was a challenge for me that I welcomed. But I think if I had to choose one word to kind of wrap up, because I want to honor our time, I've learned the power of adapting and pivoting. Because I, like our students, had to adapt. I had to increase my own competency as it relates to providing therapy online. And I think I'll just end, in addition to that adapting, my compassion meter went way, way up. Because even though we were experiencing the same or a similar experience, it was different for everybody. And I have just a greater level of compassion for folks who didn't have access to care, whose internet wasn't working. So I was so compassionate. It motivated me to be a better clinician. And as Dr. Hicks said, I think as difficult as it was, there were some good things that came from this, because I believe I'm a better person, a better clinician, and a better administrator because of the challenges we've had in the last year plus.
Thank you, Dr. Lundy. Dr. Cox, I know I've learned a lot about online education over the past year. What do you wish all of the professors like me knew?
Well, I think that traditional assignments, as we know them as faculty and professors, they had to change in a virtual environment, and they had to change rather quickly. We had to determine, how do we encourage student engagement? How do we make these assignments fun? So one of the things that I started to think about is, what do they do in elementary school? How do they get these kids involved? And so one of the resources that I found that I really liked was Flipgrid. So how do I take an assignment and ask them to do a Flipgrid, something that's quick, something that I can still use for assessment, and something that they will enjoy doing? Because what I found that if the students think that class is going to be fun, even though they had a lot going on, or if an assignment was going to be really, really fun, that they were more likely to do that assignment. They are more likely to participate. The other thing that I found is collaboration with other faculty who have been doing this for a while, who have been heavily engaged in it, was very beneficial. So I found a site called Teachers Pay Teachers, and there were a lot of free online resources there that I was able to utilize and use. And it was it may have been a small assignment, but it was something that I think the students felt like they had time to do, and things that they could complete and still go on with everything else that they were dealing with. Thank you.
Oh, great idea. Dr. Robinson, you've done an incredible job of moving chapel online. Can you talk about that process?
Sure, absolutely. So before I go there, though, I want to kind of add to the question that has been asked of the other panelists in how COVID-19, and I'm going to also say COVID-16-19 has impacted our students in this season and time. We have discovered that while there was certainly an increase for the need of mental and well-being across the board, there was also a very, very strong return to spirituality for many persons in whatever capacity, and not just Christianity, but a strong either return to it or a really strong, like, what is this and what is God doing? And so lots of questions around passages like Matthew 24, Luke 21, and 2 Chronicles 7 that talks about kind of end of times things around pestilence, war, disease has come up a lot for our students when they were asking questions around these things. And so being able to really implement theological education beyond religious life programming became helpful for students to be able to attempt to balance what was going on or make sense of what was going on, and faith becoming a coping mechanism to navigate the terrain that we all were finding ourselves in. And it wasn't just students. I'm sure many of us on the line can also kind of testify that we either started praying a little bit more or questioning deity and spirituality a little bit more, trying to understand what was happening. So I want to kind of throw that out there as we consider our students' overall development in trying to be great students. If one is experiencing a faith crisis, it impacts being able to comprehend any lesson or things being presented to them. And so that I would say that the illness of COVID-19, but then also we're dealing with the majority of students of color who were being slapped in the face with a lot of racial injustices and oppression, and the imagery of people who look like them being killed at the hands of persons that they thought, or we say we should be able to trust. And so while we talked a little bit about race and how race played a role in, like, the disparities, we also want to pull that piece out too, because that amount of fear and anxiety being triggered from, can I go outside for a run, when I'm being told by Dr. Lundy, like, hey, one of the coping mechanisms is to go for a walk, go for a run. Well, I'm in a city where maybe going for a run is not the best thing for me. And so remembering that these were other things that our students and that we have been balancing as well. And so, yes, online engagement. Yes, my study for my doctorate of ministry focused on how technology and social media and the language of social media linguistics, right, could help us in engaging millennials at the time, and now Gen Zs and the Alpha generation, and how they can engage online engagement. And so I want to bring up a piece that Dr. Cox brought up. The element of play played a tremendous role in student engagement for me in religious life programming, being able to let them know that this is fun, you can engage in this. And so I feel like Dr. Lundy, I wish that I had an increase in participation in Bible study and in chapel viewing, and I had an increase. And so I wish that translated into the classroom as well. I certainly will now know I'll try to collaborate, right? Because collaboration is the currency of the day these days, to make sure we push students to participate. But what I found is, like, again, having things to be fun, incentives for awards. So I did a lot of games and incentives for students to participate. I collaborated with Tuskegee University, Bethune, Cookman University, and Howard University, so that all of our students could participate in the same experience, but it also helped share the load of the work, so that we, as the deans and chaplains, were not being burned out as well as we were programming and rotating. And so I think that allowing persons to plug in where they fit in most, because we allow church sometimes to be so conservative and traditional and man-made and built that people don't feel welcome to it. And so I remember when I told students, you can record for chapel in your scrubs, at your job, in the aisle at Walmart, and we will still air it on Tuesday morning. It increased their participation and attendance. And as you all have seen, since COVID-19 and since we moved online, our student participation in chapel has remained the same. We still have had, as a matter of fact, they're probably more participatory in the actual worship experience than they were when we were in person, and reading the scripture and praying and things of that nature. And so it was a matter of chasing them down, though. Being able to say, hey, I want you, I need you. The group that I feel like I missed the most has been the freshman group, because I didn't have a relationship with them to be able to chase them down the way I chased down the other students. And so I think, again, if we keep in mind collaboration, having accessibility in many entry points, being able to connect the dots that maybe babysitting at home or having a job is preventing you from doing this, and it's not your lack of discipline, and it's not that you are not equipped, but being able to say, I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you, and this is how we can continue to do this together, because you can still achieve this, I think will be helpful. And again, not just for our students, but for each and every one of us. We all need to hear that and have that support while we are in the midst of still navigating a disease from 2019 and 2021. Thank you.
Thanks. And I also want to honor the students that have joined us today. I see quite a few students that are in this Zoom meeting right now. And so I'm just going to ask you a question that I know you have opinions about. I want to know, students, how moving online affected your learning. And I'm opening this up to whoever would like to answer.
Speak. I just want to get it out, just say what I want to say really fast. I've been looking forward to this all day. I just want to say that this situation was very ideal for me in the beginning. This is something that I have been praying for 6 months prior, before I even enrolled. And I just so happened to be blessed to have friends in the right places. I have friends in financial aid and friends in admissions, and I spoke with them prior, and they said, Lydia, this is exactly what you want, sis. Come on and take advantage of this online opportunity and hop on board and finish your bachelor's that you've been wanting to finish for some years that you just weren't able to because of life situations. So it was ideal situation. I'll just tell you a little bit about what my Monday morning consisted of. So just so you'll see the challenges that I faced. My Monday morning would consist of me waking up, preparing for my work day. I work from home. I'm a consultant. I help veterans and people who are retired with their health insurance plans. So I would get up at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and I would, get ready, and I would sign up for log into my computer in the living room at 8 o'clock. And then I would have a Zoom class. My first Zoom class with Dr. Hendricks would be at 11. Mind you, I'm still on the phone. So many times, even in the sessions, you can see me with my headset on. I might pause it and take a call because it's a call center. So I would do that, still taking my lectures, still taking my notes. I would take lunch at 12 o'clock and just kind of refresh, regroup myself. And then I would have another lecture at 1 o'clock. And then I would have another lecture at 6 o'clock. But mind you, I'm at work the whole time from 8 o'clock to 6:30 on Mondays. Now that was my schedule. I had a floating schedule. Now Mondays was my longest day. Now, as crazy as that sounds, it was ideal for me because of the environment that I want to do. I want to be a media professional, and I'm already in the health industry, and it's fast paced, it's ever changing, and it's just kind of what comes with the demand of being in that environment. So this was my way to finally say, okay, Lydia, let's see if you can do this. I was able to fully micromanage myself and become more disciplined. My day planner became my best friend. I would make my schedule and just to try to make sure I keep up with everything. Now, getting on board with Canvas took a little bit of time, don't get me wrong, but I'm a quick study. So I had to basically, my job, I learned it from the ground up again as well. So it was not that much doubt. I was confident in my abilities as far as me adapting to the technology. So it took me a little while to get a hang of it, but I shocked myself. And many times I was telling myself, yes, girl, you're doing it. This is it. Now, Dr. Cox has talked about the lecturers, how important it is for them to be fun. And in the past, I'm a transfer student, so I'm an older student. So I've had experiences in the past where I was like, yeah, I want my classes to be fun and interactive. If they're not, I would totally shut down. But I'm in a new mind frame. I'm in a new kind of season in my life right now. So I told myself, hey, if they're not fun, you make them fun. And Dr. Hedges is my advisor. We really sat down and got some good classes that I was interested in and stuff that I was looking forward to the discussions, looking forward to the work, looking forward to cop on, because this is what I want to do. This is what I signed up for, and I'm ready to rise to the challenge. So the fun in this was not so much in, how fun, the professor was going to make it to. The fun I found it was in the classes, the topics, fine-tuning my digital portfolio, having a new, fresh material to submit to media execs. That's what the fun is for me, because that's what I signed up for. So it now I now I face the challenge of figuring out what I should do to transition. And this is a new challenge. I've already combated the challenge of seeing if I could do it, seeing if I could adapt, and I've done that. So now I'm like, okay, what's next? Now they're opening up for fall. I live in Dallas. I'm working from home. I've been here for 12 years, building my portfolio, building my connects. Do I move to Marshall because my degree is traditional and it wants, to be interactive? And I love the interactiveness of that. But keep in mind, I know that the pandemic has changed stuff, and now everything, is digital, and I want to be able to, be flexible and versatile in that as well. So I'm just voicing my opinion just to say that I know that the majority of everybody wants to come back, and I do understand that. I want to come back as well, but I'm just one of the minorities that's just letting you know, hey, this here is working for me. I just got a few more semesters left to finish. If I can stay and finish it out, then great, let's do it. But if I got to come to Marshall, I definitely will. I just want it to be some transition, options in place for us, because we're out there. There are people that I was on lecture classes with that were in Florida, that were in Georgia, in various places. So just know that we out here, we grinding, we working, and I do want to see everybody, definitely, but I don't want to compromise my health. I'm not really sure about that vaccine. I'm on the fence about it. And I know if we come back to school, more than likely, we're going to have to take that vaccine. So those are the like anxiety, social challenges just right now that I'm facing. So I just hope that in this panel, or it'll be some ways that people will talk to us to give us some options. And that's just what I wanted to say about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Advisee, for coming in, because she was wanting to have all her classes online in the fall. You know that.
Yes, thank you very much. And I love to hear the students' insight as well, Lydia. So thank you. This is an open question to all of the panelists and any guests who want to jump in. I know I personally have apps that I've come to rely upon. In fact, I love my citizen science app called Globe Observer, and I've made my students learn to use it this semester. Does anybody like to comment on apps that you've learned about as you've transitioned online that you'd like to recommend?
I don't know if it's so much about the apps, but I will say, because I didn't have a chance to chime in before, that I've developed a much deeper appreciation for Zoom than I ever had before, and communicating from a distance, because this whole scenario has brought that challenge to the forefront about how do we communicate, how do we stay together, and how do we educate during COVID-19. And I think it's been very beneficial for all in the fact that it challenged us to learn the new software and to adjust the curriculum content that was on the learning management system and everything else. And I did put out that we had to learn Quality Matters and some of the check things from Quality Matters, because our students had to develop a new appreciation for what online meant at Wiley College, because the online classes before and what they are now are not the same.
Thanks. Did anybody else? It looked like you were trying to say something, Dr. Hicks. You're on mute or not?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the website is. But for me, because I'm in education and English this semester, mainly with the education, I've been having to use Texas Education training videos. And then I had also bought a subscription. I'm trying to figure out which website I was using. It's kind of like a teaching channel website. And so it allows us to look at classrooms, teachers teaching in classrooms and be able to talk about what they're doing. And so what I just do is I paid for a subscription for myself, year-long subscription. Then I just gave out the password to everybody. And, so they signed in as me to watch the videos that we're doing in class, and they probably broke 500 laws. But it was the only way that I could find, because TA only had a certain amount of training videos that you can watch. And we hit all of them by week 12 or 11 even. And so finding this other website that had a lot more videos posted of people teaching and really targeting skills. And that was the kind of apps that I've been using, is more the training video style. So I just want to comment on that. So
I guess my app is probably the app that I've become more comfortable in. That I was not an Instagram person, and I know it's when we think. I guess I know you were talking about educational apps, but I have reimagined Instagram for the work that I was doing around wellness and trying to meet students where they are. In our field, in terms of confidentiality and boundary setting, we tended not to even befriend students on social media. And so this has caused me to shift in terms of an understanding of how to use something that's deemed completely social as a form of wellness education tool. And so Wellness Wednesdays, but also beyond that, using social media as a tool for health education and support. And I think for me, it will be something that I learned that I'm able to continue to use and reimagine and repurpose. And so it's been a journey almost every Wednesday, getting to see students, connect with students finding out about Wiley because of it, and then students learning skills. I actually had the experience yesterday evening on another Instagram Live, and a wellness educator that I'm connected with, she took, I'm not sure, so I'll give you all an example. There is a strategy called emotional freedom technique. It's also a tapping technique. It's a holistic wellness approach. But anyway, the person took me through it. And so I was on the other side of experiencing it. And I got to see how, like, even in this, on this social media app, someone can take you through a guided meditation, a guided relaxation exercise, and can calm your central nervous system. And that has been powerful for me. And I hope, in fact, impactful for the students. It also allowed me to collaborate with some of the faculty and staff. We had them on at times. And so I would say that's the app that I have become more comfortable with, less anxious around. And I thought it was meaningful in the ways in which I was able to reach our students.
Did you say that was on Instagram?
Yes, so every Wednesday at noon, we do Wellness Wednesdays, and you are welcome to join on the Wiley College homepage. We talk about various wellness topics. This month has been stress awareness and alcohol awareness. So I had Nurse Bradley, our Director of Health Services. We talked specifically about how stress impacts the body. We talked about what are the things that, the impact of alcohol on the body. And we talked about particular lifestyle changes that you can make. So every Wednesday at noon, Central Standard Time. Please check it out.
Thank you. As we're winding down to get ready for lunch, I just want to learn one new thing about each of our panelists, some of whom I know very well, some of whom I just met, and some of whom are somewhere in between. So for the panelists and any guests who want to respond, I just want to know, what's the best book you've read?
Can I start, I guess? I haven't found the book. So hopefully you guys can see it. It's called Patron Saints of Nothing by Randy Rebay. And I found it because it was one of the recommendations in our children's literature textbook. And I've been buying books out of there because a lot of them are multicultural, and I have not a very multicultural library. Mine's very Western European. But it's about a 17-year-old Filipino American who is in his last year of high school, and he goes over to the Philippines because his cousin has died, and he wants to find out more about his cousin's death. And he gets into talking about the politics, really, of what's going on in the Philippines today with the President Duarte and his fight against the illegal drug trafficking over there. And So I'm not going to give away, but just to know that his cousin had somehow gotten involved in the drug trade. And so that it's again, not it's a Filipino American kid whose life changes when he goes on this trip to find out what's gone wrong with his cousin's life. So that's my book. And I will.
Please put that in the chat. I'm very curious.
Dr. Gorski, let me say that my favorite book right now, and thank you, I misunderstood the first question, but I'm on, I'm keeping up now. So my favorite book is right here. This is the one that we used. I just actually presented for Title III to Trenholm Community College in Montgomery, Alabama. They purchased 200 of these books. This is a book that I wrote about 3 years ago. It's called Customer Service, the reason some HBCUs are destined to fail. And this is a very good book. I think it's very timely. And I would hope that of those of you who are interested in reading a very good book on HBCUs, please check this book out. It's on Amazon.com and Barnes and Nobles. You can get it all over right now. So it's a great book. You asked about a good book. This is one for me right here. Thank you.
And if I can piggyback off him, I've actually read that book, and it's my go-to book when I'm trying to, explain to people why things aren't going right sometimes at HBCUs. And it's got a whole gamut of different organizations, from Greek life to the admissions kind of office areas. And it's written by different people, have all contributed to the different chapters. It's my go-to book, I have to admit. So I'm going to promote that one big time.
I appreciate it.
Please do share that one in the chat as well, Dr. Andrus. It looks like Dr. Muhammad shared his in the chat. I want to honor everybody's time. We've got about 3 minutes left for anybody and everybody else to answer if you have something you want to share. And then we're going to wrap up for lunch. Please don't forget that we have sessions this afternoon. We are going to have a communications careers session. We are going to have the student research session. And then we're also going to have a scholarship session. So all of those, I think, will be very pertinent to us and to our students. So for whenever you are free during the day, students, professors, everybody else, do know that it'll be the same Zoom link. So I hope to see you there. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Hedrick to close.
I just wanted to point out that when you're talking about the textbooks, the books, unfortunately, I've spent a lot of time on Creative Commons recently because we've been challenged to switch the curriculum to open educational resources. And that's been one of the things. But I've also, another book that was a political science book. I forget the name of it, but it's about how we go in cycles and in generational cycles. And I'll figure out what the name of it is. It's by 2 political scientists that say we go in 20-year cycles with generations. And like we got Generation Z that we're dealing with now. And I enjoyed that book, and because it brings up some of the challenges that we face as we deal with a different generation, and we're trying to educate them, teach them. Dr. Muhammad.
Okay, I put a book up there called The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man. That's a novel by James Weldon Johnson. The story is not even important. The significance is that it's a book that's well written. And one of the things about writing well is to read good writing. So that's an example of a novelist who was an excellent writer. And if you don't know who James Weldon Johnson is, He's also the person who wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing. He's the author of that. He has an astounding career as a singer, a songwriter, a professor. He was also the first Black person who was a member of the state bar as a lawyer in Florida. So he had an excellent career, but this book, Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, as I always tell students, writing well has a lot to do with reading good writing. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and thank all the panelists for coming in for this session. I will also point out that one of the things or challenges we're going to have to deal with, because where you hear it coming up, I've been listening to CNN and everything. I was really surprised the other day when I was watching CNN, and all of a sudden what flashed on the screen was these 16 schools, named the 16 schools. I said, what are these 16 schools? And those are the 16 schools that have already announced that they're going to require their students to have COVID-19 vaccinations before they can return to campus in the fall. And Rutgers, I think, was the first one. And there's an NPR article that I put in the chat for you to go to if you want to read that article. And I did notice that when I was looking at that, I said, hey, I know one of those schools. Paul Quinn College was on the list. A local HBCU of ours. They've already made their decision that they're going to require their students to get the COVID-19 vaccination. So that's another challenging decision, and might actually be a controversial decision in light of the fact of some of the things we brought up in this session about how few minorities have actually gotten vaccinated so far, and how many of them are willing to or want to get vaccinated. And do we require them to get the vaccination and return to campus? How do we handle and empathize with their needs and wants and desires? It's going to be a challenge, but I know we're opening back up our campus on June 21st for the summer bridge, and then after that, in the fall, we're going to be open. But still don't know exactly what the teaching experience is going to be like inside the individual classrooms. Because for a while there, it says we aren't going to be able to do that. And when we might do a hybrid if we have to or something, and all the classes are going to have to be seated with 6 feet apart. And then it says, well, we don't have to do 6 feet. Maybe we can just do 3 feet apart. And that's what the talk is now. And, and do we require masks? And do we require, these are all things that we have to, definitely has to be addressed. And these are all challenges that we all face. I want to thank all of you for being a part of this. I'm going to hit the stop recording, and this will be available on the website for all of you. All of you have a good lunch, and the Media Career Days panel will be next at 1 p.m. and there'll be a lot of professionals that are going to be chiming in there. Some of them from Dallas, some of them are local, and there'll be more students in that session than we've had in others, because that session is going to be beneficial to the students in their acquisition of a job, possibly, and everything. So you should see more students in that session at 1 p.m. And then there's the student competition. I'm really looking forward to that, because we got 3 research papers and 2 multimedia projects that we're going to share with you at 2:10. And there's another session after that that's kind of in a similar vein to this one, except it's a little different. It's about student scholarships and how we support them through scholarships, about the Career Pathways Initiative and how we've had adapt and change the curriculum and our things for the Career Pathways Initiative, and the importance of experiential learning. So I encourage you all to be a part of that session at 3:20. And I'm going to go ahead and quit the recording. You can stay on if you want, and just leave, but be back at 1 p.m.